Cleveland has seen its fair share of chaos, but this might be the breaking point. The walls inside the Browns organization are closing in, and the man standing in the middle of it all is head coach Kevin Stefanski. Once hailed as the steady hand capable of steering the Browns back into contention, Stefanski now finds himself in the eye of a storm that's growing louder by the day. The offense has stalled, the fans have turned restless, and the whispers from within are starting to sound like marching orders. Multiple reports now indicate that the Browns are seriously considering moving on from Stefanski, and soon. According to insiders, the upcoming game against the Miami Dolphins could be his last on the Cleveland sideline. What was once seen as a stable regime has started to crumble under the weight of poor decisions, mounting losses, and a locker room that no longer believes in the system. Garrett Bush, one of the most respected voices in Cleveland sports media, put it bluntly: "The Browns can't keep bleeding without someone taking the fall. Someone's gonna pay for it," he said. "It won't be Jimmy Haslam, he owns the team. But somebody will fall." And all signs point to that somebody being Stefanski. For a while, ownership had his back, but the patience of Jimmy Haslam, the fiery and unpredictable team owner, seems to be wearing thin. Haslam's frustration is no longer whispered. It's being felt across the organization. He's tired of the same excuses, the same empty promises, and the same losses that keep stacking up in familiar fashion. The once promising coach who was brought in to modernize the Browns' offense is now being accused of driving it straight into the ground. What makes Stefanski's situation even more volatile is his unwavering loyalty to quarterback Dillon Gabriel. A loyalty that's now starting to look like stubbornness. Despite repeated poor performances, despite a lack of chemistry with his receivers, and despite growing calls from fans and analysts alike to make a change, Stefanski continues to insist that Gabriel is a work in progress. He insists that patience will pay off, that Gabriel's development takes time. In press conferences, his tone has remained even, calm, calculated, but to the outside world, that calm now feels tone-deaf. The fan base doesn't want patience. They want results. And patience has started to sound a lot like denial. Meanwhile, star defensive end Myles Garrett has broken his silence and spoken publicly about what so many inside the locker room are thinking. His words were careful, but the message was unmistakable. "It's frustrating," he said after the team's latest loss. "It's frustrating to lose the same way every time." He didn't have to name names. Everyone knew who he meant. Garrett's remarks were the clearest signal yet that the locker room is no longer unified behind Stefanski's approach. The defense continues to perform at an elite level, but the offense's ineffectiveness has left players exhausted, mentally and physically. Week after week, they hold the line, only to watch their efforts crumble because the offense can't move the chains. Garrett's visible frustration mirrors that of the entire fan base, the sense that something has to give. Inside the front office, Haslam's displeasure reportedly intensified after Stefanski's latest press conference, where he refused to even mention Shader Sanders' name. That silence spoke volumes. Haslam had personally pushed for the Browns to sign Sanders, a move meant to inject energy and competition into the team. For the owner, this wasn't just about football. It was about branding, excitement, and future potential. Sanders, with his pedigree, charisma, and immense popularity, represented more than just a backup quarterback. He was a chance to re-energize the fan base and reframe the team's image. But Stefanski's refusal to even acknowledge him was a direct challenge to ownership's vision. To Haslam, that's not just bad coaching, it's defiance. Analyst Mary Kay Cabot called it one of Stefanski's biggest blunders yet, pointing out that ignoring Sanders was both a football and a public relations disaster. "You can't just act like Shader Sanders doesn't exist," she said. "He's too big, too talented, and too influential to be hidden." Cabot's comment struck a chord, because she was right. Sanders isn't just a player, he's a phenomenon. His presence draws attention, his play draws fans, and his name carries weight beyond the field. In trying to downplay Sanders, the Browns only made him more of a talking point. Every week that he sits, every press conference that ignores him, the tension grows stronger. Even sports personality Skip Bayless jumped into the fray, accusing Stefanski of trying to paint Sanders as entitled or spoiled because of his famous background. But Bayless pushed back hard against that narrative. "He might have been raised rich," Skip said, "but he ain't no spoiled kid. Not on the field. He's tough. He plays like he's from the toughest neighborhood you've ever seen." That comment hit home with fans who've been watching Sanders prove himself since day one. Despite coming from fame and comfort, Sanders has earned his place through grit and discipline. He's been the first one in the facility, the last to leave, the guy who stays after practice to study tape and refine his mechanics. He's done everything right, yet he's still on the bench, watching an offense collapse week after week. This disconnect between the coach and the rest of the organization has become impossible to ignore. Analysts describe a growing divide between Stefanski, general manager Andrew Berry, and ownership. Haslam wanted competition at quarterback. Berry wanted options. Stefanski wanted control, and in his attempt to maintain it, he may have isolated himself. The result is an atmosphere of confusion, where no one seems to be on the same page, and every decision feels like a power struggle. When ownership, management, and coaching aren't aligned, the entire organization suffers, and that's exactly what's happening in Cleveland. Behind the scenes, insiders believe the Browns' owner has already started exploring replacements. Names are being floated quietly, contingency plans discussed in hushed tones. And while Stefanski may technically have a pass for the season, that pass could be revoked the moment the Browns get embarrassed again, and with the Dolphins looming, that moment might not be far away. If the Browns lose, especially in ugly fashion, Haslam could make the call before the final whistle even stops echoing in the stadium. The irony is that this entire situation could have been avoided. If Stefanski had shown even a willingness to adapt, to acknowledge Shader Sanders, to experiment, to inject life into the offense, he might still have the locker room on his side. Instead, his rigidity has turned frustration into rebellion. The team feels stagnant, the fans feel ignored, and the media feels vindicated for their growing skepticism. What was once a promising chapter under Stefanski's leadership now feels like a slow-motion collapse. Cleveland is a city built on resilience, but even its fans have their limits. They've endured decades of false starts, rebuilds, and heartbreaks, and they can sense when history is about to repeat itself. The question isn't just whether Stefanski will survive the season, it's whether the Browns can survive another failed reset. So, what do you think? Has Kevin Stefanski's refusal to make changes sealed his fate? Is his loyalty to Dylan Gabriel commendable or catastrophic? And will Jimmy Haslam finally step in to end this downward spiral before the locker room completely fractures? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Should Shader Sanders finally get his shot, or is it too late for this team to turn things around? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more breaking updates on the Browns saga. Because in Cleveland, the drama isn't slowing down anytime soon, and the next headline could change everything.